Good evening, everyone. It's Steve with news from the Pew, also Census Fidelium. But Rick is not available today, and Fawaz, Jonathan's flying out to Europe. So he's always busy. Fawaz is busy too. So you just got me just to cover just a couple. One little thing I wanted to put out here before the week's over, because it came out. Was it yesterday? I think he did a town hall DJT. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it is this, and it's got social media Catholics all in a tizzy.
For a vote of the people, and that's where we have it. And the states are now voting for it. And honestly, some of them are going much more liberal, like in Ohio. I would have thought it might
some of them
be a
are
little
not
bit different, and some of them are not. But it's going to be redone. It's going to be redone. You end up with a vote of the people, and some of them I agree they're too tough, and those are going to be redone.
So everyone's going nuts. Oh, you look at you little, your state right pro-lifers, you Dobbs guys. There's been quite a few. Edward, if Dr. Professor Fesser's up watching this, I know he's retweeted it. He's going to have to make. We've had exchange a couple times. We're not mad at each other. I'm not slamming him or anything like that. But a lot of Catholics do not get the federalism mindset or anything like that. It's just centralism. We have the elected king, the elected monarch, come what may. Even though all the anti-federalists warned about that's going to be a terrible idea, we've now embraced that, arms wide open. And let's get right to how come this is just a bad mindset. Let me see if I have that up here. I have the wrong one. Here we go. Here is Article 1, Section 8, enumerated powers. Clause 1, general welfare. The Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, impose and excises, and pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. It goes into taxing power, spending power, all that. Okay. Here's Article 9. Let's see if I can get to that. Thought I had it ready, but apparently I don't. There is Section 9, powers denied Congress. The migration or importation of such a person's estates now existing shall think proper to admit, prohibited by the Congress. Oh, that's just migration. That's just Clause 1. Now let's get to Section 9 of the same article, Article 1, Section 9. This is powers denied Congress. So it's a negative, kind of a negative thing on there, what they cannot do. Clause 1, migration and importation. Clause 2, habeas corpus. The privilege of writ of habeas corpus should not be suspended, even though Abraham Lincoln did. And there's also, other guys that have tried doing it as well. Nullification, direct taxes, exports, ports, approbations, titles of nobility and foreign and emulants. And here's Section 10, powers denied to states. So it's a negative on what the states can do. Prescribed powers. No state shall enter into treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters or marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills and credit or bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender of payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation or contracts, or grant any title of nobility. What that means, states can do whatever they want, except these right here. Up here, this is denied Congress what Congress cannot do. All that stuff. There's a lot more of the stuff that Congress cannot do. Here's the enumerated powers that were up here. I went too fast. Here's Section 9, the powers denied Congress, and here's Section 10, the powers denied to the states. So you can't make a king in the state of Texas. You can leave. Texas can leave the union and do whatever the flip you want. But right there, you cannot, as part of these United States, according to the contract people have, if you're in New Hampshire or wherever, you can't have a king run your state. You can't create your own money in your state if you're still part of the union. So you can do anything else. All this right here, this is what you cannot do. So think about it. Anything that's not on there, you can do at the state level. Everybody might say, "What about Confederation?" Oh, the Confederation, the Confederation that was created. That's because South Carolina and others left this agreement, created a new one. You can't create a confederation while part of this one. It's like being married twice. You can't be in union with one and then be in union with another at the same time. This is only for your unity in this federal constitution. Here's an overview of the executive branch. Well, maybe before I do that, let's play something else that came out yesterday. This is at the Al Smith Dinner.
You said I'm the father of IVF. As you know, some Catholics feel, and the Catholic Church believes, when you implement this technology, you're killing embryos. Will you have a religious exemption to your IVF mandate for religious organizations and businesses that feel this violates my religious principles?
Well, you know, I haven't been asked that, but it sounds to me like a pretty good idea, frankly. But even Catholics, a lot of them, they want IVF. It's fertilization, basically. Mm-hmm. And, you know, they view that as helping a family, helping parents have a child. And it's a very popular thing, but it's certainly if there's a religious problem, I think people should go with that. I really think they should be able to do that. But
now, again, do we have a king or not? Does IVF fit anywhere in the Constitution? Well, here's a Freeman in July 23rd, 1788. This is Trench Cox is the author. It's from the Anti-Federalist Mindsets. By the way, the Anti-Federalists were the only Federalists. It was a pejorative that they called these guys that. Anyway, he lists a couple things. It will be found on careful examination that many things which are indispensably necessary to the existence and good order of society cannot be performed by the federal government. It will require the agency and powers of the state legislators or sovereignties with their various appurtenances and appendages. First, Congress, under all the powers of proposed Constitution, can neither train the militia nor appoint the officers thereof. Secondly, they cannot fix the qualifications of electors, representatives, or the electors of the president or vice president. Thirdly, in case of the vacancy of the Senate and House representative, they cannot issue writ for a new election nor take any of the measures necessary to obtain one. You see it. They cannot do X, Y, Z. They cannot do this. This is the federal government. Ninthly, they cannot interfere with the opening of rivers and canals, the making or regulation of roads except post roads, building bridges, erecting ferries, establishment of state seminaries of learning, libraries, literary, religious, trading, or manufacturing societies, erecting or regulating the police of cities, towns, or boroughs, creating new state offices, building lighthouses, public wharves, county jails, markets, or other public buildings, making sale of state lands and other state property, receiving or appropriating the incomes of state buildings and property, executing the state laws, altering the criminal law, nor they can do any other matter or thing appertaining to the internal affairs of any state, whether legislative, executive, or judicial, civil, or ecclesiastical. Again, back from 1788, these guys said that, you know, what DJT just said about they'll be overdone. there was a thing back in the day of when I played basketball in high school. There was a cheer, "You can't do that. You can't." It's basically that. It's that simple. Barack, whoever, cannot do what they say. Most of what they say, they cannot do. Here's Patrick Henry on this topic about having an executive, pretty much.
To number 4, the executive branch. He just continually hammered on the power of the executive. He said there is to be a great and mighty president with very extensive powers, the powers of a king. Many of the anti-federalists, even before Patrick Henry here, took the position that they thought it would tend towards an aristocracy, a vile and arbitrary aristocracy, or a monarchy, I believe is how Cato put it. But here's how Patrick Henry continued. He is to be supported in extravagant magnificence, so that the whole of our property may be taken by this American government by laying what taxes they please, giving themselves what salaries they please, and suspending our laws at their pleasure. Now, suspending our laws isn't talking about suspending. I know we think of everything when it comes to law. Everything is going to be exactly the same, uniform. All laws have to be national. But to Patrick Henry, he's talking about like, okay, they're supposed to have limited delegated powers. But the way I see it, especially with this executive branch and the taxing power, which I'll get to a little bit more in a moment, that's up there on this list as well. He's saying they're going to override the laws of the various states. And that's a bad thing. That's a centralizing thing. And he absolutely hated that. He continued on the executive branch. He said, if your American chief be a man of ambition and abilities, how easy is it for him to render himself absolute? The army is in his hands. And if he be a man of address, it will be attached to him. And it will be the subject of long meditation with him to seize the first auspicious moment to accomplish his design. Man, sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it? He said, away with your president, we shall have a king. Even if they're not named that, they certainly have far more power today, the way they act, they're not supposed to, than many of the kings of old. He said, the army will salute him monarch. Your militia will leave you and assist in making him king and fight against you. And what have you to oppose this force? What will then become of you and your rights? Will not absolute despotism ensue? And it's fascinating reading the notes on this because these are the original notes. I forget who wrote these, but they basically kind of took a jab at Henry. They didn't even include what he went on to describe. He said, it says here, Mr. Henry strongly and pathetically expatiated on the probability of the president's enslaving America and the horrid consequences that must result. But they didn't, I don't know if there is a record of what specifically he had to say, but whoever, this is June 4th, 1788, some people listed as the 3rd. He said that this is a consolidated government is demonstrably clear. And the danger of such a government is, to my mind, very striking. This is a pretty famous quote. For those of you who followed or read a little bit about Patrick Henry, we see this pretty often. But I thought it was interesting to include. My political curiosity, exclusive of my anxious solicitude for the public welfare, leads me to ask, talking about those great men in Philadelphia, he was chosen to go, he chose not to. The legend says, I smell a rat. Who authorized them to speak the language of we the people instead of we the states? States, he said, are the characteristics and the soul of a confederation. If the states be not the agents of this compact, it must be one great, consolidated national government of the people of all the states. So right off the bat, he's like, man, just look at the beginning here. You're telling us, now there are some arguments against this, but it is pretty compelling. He's saying, like, you're right off the bat, you're telling us this is one people rather than a union of independent sovereign states.
So anyway, just wanted to bring that to your attention on this. People are getting absolutely upset about that whole situation, which, what Trump said in his interview. It was on Faulkner Reports, and then obviously the IVF thing. If we just understood what that means, what the executive's supposed to do and what they're not supposed to do, maybe we would be far better off. Most people, hey, you're going to vote in 3 weeks. One person is going to run 320 billion people. Again, what sense does that make? You have an elected king. You have an elected monarch. Most people do not know who's running for their gubernatorial race or their legislative race in the state. But if people realize that the states have the power to end most of these culture war things, we could fix it. If we had, you can't tell me there's people in Texas, Oregon, wherever, name your state, Michigan, that aren't good Catholic folk that are against all this stuff, that can't run for your governor position, your governor mansion. You can't run for a state house legislative. If we had enough doing that, we would flip all this really quick and be able to end a lot of this nonsense. But again, Most people think magically and superstitiously that you're going to vote for your guy come November 4th, and it's going to switch like that, like a light bulb. And imagine little fairy dust is going to come down from the heavens, and everything is going to be happy days are back again. Well, I'm going to hate to break it to you. Don't put your trust in Princess one. Where's that evidence? It hasn't happened ever, and it's not going to happen this time around. Again, if you're upset about what he said, just remember he can, and talk to your state legislator, see what they're doing. Georgia just put a thing a couple weeks ago about the heartbeat bill. I think it was 6 weeks or something like that. You can end this stuff at a state level, and if the executive comes up and says, "Oh, we're not going to let that happen," push the BS button on it. He can't do that. Now, maybe that's pandering to the crowd so that he's trying to get so it doesn't look like he's a, pro-lifer or whatever. I don't know what he's trying to do. Could be political pandering. He's been talking about that for over a year. Everyone's been upset about that with the Nikki Haley correlations and things like that. Could be. But again, he can't, unless you admit he's an elected king, he can't do what he said on the Faulkner report. Anyway, just wanted to bring that to your attention. Again, study this stuff. With that video I just had with Patrick Henry, that's from the 10th Amendment Center. Go check their stuff out. Check out Brian McClanahan's stuff. He does one 3 times a week at Evo Institute. If you want to learn so you can figure out what's going on and going, why is this so nuts? And nothing ever fixes. The voting for the lesser evil is all everyone ever says, and nothing changes. Well, again, voting for the lesser evil will work at your state level. Do you know that voting for the presidents at the beginning was an idea? The idea that they had was the Congress to vote for the president, so it wasn't going for a popular vote. And again, when this comes down in a couple of weeks, they're going to say the popular vote wins because it's always going to be because of California. California's got a lot more people, obviously. And they're going to say, "Oh, well, our guy won. We should get rid of the Electoral College because of popular vote." If it was up to the popular vote, New York, California would run which kind of does right now. California pretty much runs the legislature, and it's just because they have 20 something, 20, almost 30 representatives in there. You got to decentralize. It's decentralization or bust. But it's more sexy to talk about the king. And after you get done and just push your button in a couple weeks and nothing changes, you'll just wait. Hey, we're going to do it 4 more years. Probably Michelle will be the thing for next time, because we've been talking about this for how long. DJT is going to be the selected monarch for this next coming up, guaranteed. Anyways, have a great rest of the day. Maybe I'll come up with something else later.